people were used to going to see entertainment for free, and we didn't give them a samosa with their entertainment, they weren't going to come. But now, 2 decades later, we are filling theatres across the country. And I think the important thing to say is it's not because I'm a genius, it's because we're telling real stories that matter to us.
A very warm welcome to the Global Indian Creators Podcast. We are so glad to have you with us. If you are enjoying our podcast so far, we would love for you to leave us a rating and a comment, as we'd love to hear your thoughts and reach more listeners like you.
This week's guest is Pravesh Kumar, a leading figure in British South Asian theatre and the founder and artistic director of Rifco Theatre Company. Born and raised in Slough, he established Rifco in 2000 with a mission to reflect the richness and diversity of British Asian experiences, and has been awarded an MBE for his contributions to theatre. A writer and director, his work brings underrepresented narratives to life and draws diverse audiences into theatres. His productions, spanning plays, comedies and musicals, have featured celebrated performers and helped launch new talent. Among his most acclaimed works is Britain's Got Bhangra, which played to around 30,000 people across 2 national tours, while The Deranged Marriage, centred around an Indian wedding, attracted over 50,000 theatre-goers. Pravesh spoke to us during the break of a busy production rehearsal, so come and join us backstage for our conversation. Let's begin with your motivations for Rifco. What made you want to be in the position you're in and be with Rifco?
In the 90s, when I was an actor, very often all that would happen is you'd get the opportunity to play a taxi driver or a terrorist. There was nothing else happening, and very, very rarely there'd be some work. And me and a group of friends started to think about what it really meant to have our authentic stories told on stage and on film. And we were like, well, where are we? We are a significant population in the UK especially, and our stories are nowhere to be seen. Now, lots changed in the last 2 decades, not enough in my opinion, but especially in the 90s when I accidentally set this company up, it was because I didn't see people like me anywhere. I remember once there was an advert on TV and I remember going, Mum, quick, there's a brown person on the telly. And, that's not that long ago. And lots of things have happened for diverse casting now. But really, where are our authentic stories? I always say if you're not represented in kind of novels, in plays, in music, in arts, we might be forgotten, because those are the things that live on beyond us. And also, I think our history is really important in this country. We made a significant change to this entire country, and is it being recorded? So those were really my motivations. I was like, where are we and why are we not important?
You have this ethos, so to speak, of bringing South Asian audiences into theatre, and the impact you have in terms of migrating a audience from traditional cinema into theatre. You've also supported new talent on stage. How challenging do you think it has been for you in terms of, one, bringing audiences into theatre, and secondly, have you found it a challenge to attract new talent, and where do you see sort of British Indians getting into arts and theatre?
So the first thing about audiences have always been integral to everything I do. I always say that we're an audience-led company in a way, because I don't want to make work with the brown people on stage with a sea of white people watching. That's what I see everywhere I go. You can go to the big institutions in this country, even now, and they will put on a piece of theatre that is so-called culturally diverse, but the entire landscape of the work is white. The writer could be white. The tonality of the work can be very white-led. And I'm kind of going, I want to see stories where we are truly included. That's what diversity should look like. Diversity on stage, diversity on screen, and diversity in the audience. Because otherwise, we're just playing to white people. Which is it's still happening now. I have this thing whenever I go to a theatre of a so-called of colour production, I look around me and see how many people of colour are in the audience. And in my shows, usually 80%, if not, around that number, sometimes 100%. I'm not saying that's the mark of success, I'm saying that's the mark of inclusivity, of being truly inclusive. So that's really important to me in all my work. So the work has to be authentic. To achieve getting a real British South Asian audience into theatres, it's been tough, at the beginning of this journey. People were used to going to see entertainment for free, and we didn't give them a samosa with their entertainment. They weren't going to come. But now, 2 decades later, we are filling theatres across the country. And I think the important thing to say is it's not because I'm a genius, it's because we're telling real stories that matter to us. And I think that is the key, and done in a way that truly feels like it's ours. Like, for example, right now I'm in rehearsal for a big musical called Frankie Goes to Bollywood. And it's a celebration of Bollywood, but it's asking really important questions about how complicit we are in the problems with Bollywood cinema as well. Because we buy tickets for, billions of people go and watch Bollywood cinema. Are we asking the right questions? Because it's popular culture. What is Bollywood saying about women? That's the question that I'm asking. So my work always looks at making something in a way that truly talks to the people it's about. It should feel accessible, but then it should also ask important questions. It should feel meaningful. It should feel important to us. And very often, when I see other companies making work, especially when they're white-led, they're not asking those questions. And the tonality of the work is often about us, but we're not included, if you know what I mean. Just to talk about our Rifco Associates program, that's just something that is absolutely in every part of our being. I was an artist that had no opportunity, very little opportunity. And I constantly meet people in the beginning of their career, in the middle of their career saying, it's impossible. How did you break down the doors? And I always say, I didn't break down any doors. I literally just made my own door because they weren't letting me in. So I just said, right, well, I'm just going to make another door here and hopefully people will come with me. Our artist development program is the lifeblood of our company. It's where we really invest in new talent, mid-career talent. It's not only about new, it's also about people making their second, third plays and musicals. And even with some very successful people, we're working on a couple of new musicals with people who are very successful and big names, but they've never made a piece of theatre before. If we don't do that, how are things going to change? How are we going to have more companies? How are we going to have more artists? And I'm really proud to say that a lot of the artists that have come through our doors, they're on TV now. They're in Netflix series. They're in West End shows. We feel really proud that they've done so well. I hope that answers the 3 bits of your question.
It does. It really does. In terms of a couple of things you've said there, when it comes to the Associates Programme, you mentioned that some people at the beginning of their journey, how have you perhaps given training for anyone who hasn't done theatre before, but they love acting or they need a bit more training in acting? You have had so much success and such big shows touring the UK. Did it feel like a risk when you were starting out?
So about the training aspect of it, I would say we're not a drama school. So we want people to come to us with some basic knowledge of the art form. But what we do is we give real opportunity to people that may have nothing on their CV before. For example, in Britain's Got Bhangra, a lot of the cast was straight out of drama school or straight on their first job. Very often we are the first place. Right now, in the cast of Frankie Goes to Bollywood, there are 4 young people in the cast, and this is their first big job. And it's just brilliant because I have to keep saying to them, I'm not your teacher, I'm your director, and it's a different relationship. So it's really wonderful to see their journeys, and they'll go on to do really wonderful things like many have before. So this is a risky business. When I tell my mum I was giving up my job at British Airways to go into the arts, she told me I was crazy. I was doing the worst thing ever. I'll never have any money. And now she's the first person that turns out a press night, virtually wearing a tiara on her head. Even our parents have to come on these big journeys with us. I think younger people now have different parents to what I had, hopefully. But it's risky. I mean, this show we're making now, it's very risky. It's going to cost, near £1 million to put on. I spend most of my time finding money, finding partners, finding sponsors to make the work happen. We're really lucky to be funded by the Arts Council of England, but that doesn't pay for the show. That pays for our kind of startup costs and our team and it's a really big support. So, but I spend a lot of time fundraising, finding money, finding partners. And, if people don't turn up, we're over. So our audience are our biggest funder. So a lot of people don't know this, that, we're an arts charity. So the reason our ticket prices are £25, £30 for such a big show is because the funding we get, we use that to keep the prices down, to kind of subsidize the audience so they can see something that they could normally not afford to go, this same show in the West End is going to be £150. So we are subsidising the audience and hopefully they will come in their thousands like they have before. But if they don't turn up, we're in trouble.
You said your work that you did with Britain's Got a Bang, that certainly had a huge acclaim and created a wave throughout Britain and probably beyond. You making theatre more accessible, there's been enormous progress, which you have definitely been a big part of. But where do you see the future for theatre and its engagement with the diaspora?
I hope theatre will continue to grow in other countries. Canada has a huge diaspora, of South Asian communities. North America does. I feel like UK is way ahead of the curve. And whenever I go to places like Canada and Toronto, and I'm like, where are these companies? Where are these voices? So I hope that will grow. I hope we can give confidence to people to go into this difficult but brilliant kind of career. I think it's a tough old career because, we're still being asked to be doctors and lawyers and accountants. I know it's a cliche, but our parents are still saying these things. I'm a parent now, and my daughter said to me the other day, she said, I want to be an artist. And I went, oh, God, really? And then I had to stop myself. I go, no, of course you can be an artist. I'm an artist. And it's still seen as risky, but I hope the change will come in more people having the confidence, the opportunity to take up these careers. That's where the change will come. And I think we have to get to a level where we're on the big tables making big decisions. That's where things will really happen. I'm hoping more shows go into Broadway and the West End, have commercial legs. That's our next step.
I suppose just to finish off really, because I think what's really come across is your motivations overall. So it would be really nice to leave readers and possibly viewers and listeners with your message on finding that motivation to begin with in order to take those big risks and make a change as you have.
I think if you want to be an artist, and I use that in the broad term of, theatre maker, filmmaker, novelist, you have to have a burning desire to tell stories. You have to have a burning desire. It has to be a never-ending fire inside you that with all the no's that you're going to get, I'm reasonably successful. Even I hear no on a daily basis. That you, no matter what obstacles come in your way, will find a way to carry on. It's tough. It's a tough business. And people will tell you you're not good enough, your work's not good enough, there's not enough money, this is too risky. And, you have to listen and you have to learn and you have to keep learning and keep improving yourself and finding ways to make your art and your creativity better. But you also have to have the courage, and you have to have this never-ending courage in you that, people will tell me with Frankie Goes to Bollywood, and often, it's too risky. And I'm like, well, the risk is not to do anything. For me, that's too risky.
Pravesh Kumar MBE is clearly so passionate about storytelling and bringing diverse audiences through theatre doors. We're so grateful he shared his journey with us.
If you are enjoying listening as much as we enjoyed making this, please leave us a review on your podcast platform.
Thank you to Pravesh Kumar MBE and our guests on the Global Indian Creatives podcast who have shared their stories with us because they liked our purpose, which is to celebrate Indian creatives shaping Britain and beyond.
And a special thank you to the Queen's Commonwealth Trust for championing our aim of inspiring the next generation of talent.
Stay tuned for our next episode featuring entrepreneur Akash Mehta, founder and CEO of the hair care and wellness brand Fable & Mane. Recognised on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in media and marketing, Akash shares how he harnessed the power of social media to build a global business.